Hey everyone, Hilltop here. In this video, we're going to get into what delusion is. So, if you have a knowledge in the English language, you'll understand that delusion refers to anyone who believes that something is the true reality when it is not the true reality, right? It's not real. You believe something that isn't true, and that's the overall definition. However, those who understand how the mind works understand that we're constantly creating our own realities. And if we don't conform to a reality that most people would agree is an objective reality or a nice focal point to use as a reference for their own reality, if a person doesn't do that, then they get called delusional. So the only time I think it's worthwhile to use that term, maybe, is if the person has a mental illness, right? If a person has a mental illness, using the word delusion might come in handy. But otherwise, don't. Because even then, it's just for organization's sakes. You're delusional for believing something when to that person the logic is foolproof, and to another person that logic is entirely flawed. So who's determining what logic makes more sense than another person's logic? You know what the answer is? Collective paradigm, a consensus, some kind of subconscious, unconscious cultural consensus that we're not even paying attention to. Even the fact that I have a YouTube video, there are certain assumptions that people make when they're making YouTube videos, that he has some kind of logical framework. You know, he's not someone who you should not listen to necessarily. So, you know, when you have these assumptions, that's coming from an unconscious cultural decision on how things should be perceived. And so so although we're all different in how we judge something as true, we're constantly feedbacking to each other what is true, even on an esoteric, an unseen level. So I want to make a concept, I'll make it on my other channel, how when you change a perspective, it will automatically affect other people's perspectives for a variety of reasons. But one of them sounds more scientific, and that has to do with unconscious perception. If you change your opinion, then another person's opinion is going to be affected. So in essence, the concept of delusion doesn't exist, because if everyone's delusions are only temporary, your delusions only exist so long as people disagree with you. Then when a shift happens in paradigm or in understanding or in assumptions on how to define terms and how to understand phenomenon, the person's no longer going to be delusional. So why use that word ever? He's not delusional. He's maybe he's a free spirit. Maybe he's non-mainstream. Maybe he's spiritual. Maybe he's out there. But why throw this word delusional? So the only time it's appropriate is if the person is mentally ill, right? And there's no way that he will ever fit into anyone's paradigm. But even then, I'm following someone on another channel, and he's diagnosed with schizophrenia. And he originally believed, he got over this particular delusion, he calls it. He believed he was the prophet Jonah. Right, the prophet Jonah. And you know what? Religions have all kinds of belief systems and all kinds of esoteric associations with who they are and who they might be. Why call someone delusional for that? So, so once a person gets diagnosed with schizophrenia, we already put him in a category of do not take him seriously, he has a mental illness. And so people who are in religious communities, or spiritual even, they all of a sudden, even they might feel less inclined to take his word seriously because his name has been tarnished, so to speak. And I don't like to say mental illness tarnishes your name, but if you think about it, it kind of does, in the sense of what we should expect of him, what we should expect of his beliefs. How seriously should we take them? Should we consider it his fault for those beliefs? And how seriously are the ramifications for those beliefs on a supernal level, right? So that's very significant. That's very significant. So the point of this video is to say that delusion really doesn't exist. If a person thinks that they are a particular entity, they are a particular being, hey, that must be who they are. You know, if they've discovered it. The only issue is if you go saying that in public, I mean to the general population, they're gonna think you're they're gonna think crazy. But you know what? All religious people are crazy then, right? Or all spiritual religious people are crazy. No, of course not. They just have their own beliefs and their own assumptions about how reality works. So, in conclusion, no one is really delusional, and delusion is relative, and it can actually change from time period to time period. One person could be delusional, then he could be put in the same category. Another generation comes, he's put back into the delusional category. You know, like it's all games that we're playing based on that generation's paradigm, that generation's ability to accept them as a good or bad or weird person, you know, or who we should or shouldn't outcast. You know, it's kind of pathetic. So yeah, delusions don't really exist. Some people are prone to create more delusions because of the diagnosis of schizophrenia. They have more opinions telling them different things. They have more voices that are more audible, saying that this is the truth, that's the truth, and you may come with more spiritual conclusions. You have a more open mind to spirituality because of that. So like, you know, maybe they gotta watch out for being too out there, because they're already prone to that spiritual thinking. So you want to go the other way of being very rational, but at the same time, fundamentally, there are no delusions. And nowadays we're very organized about who we consider like in the spiritual field, who we consider someone to take seriously. Even in the scientific field, if they witness something supernatural, you know, for them to come out and say, you know, I witnessed something supernatural, they're gonna have a really hard time. They know their colleagues are gonna laugh at them, right? Or they'll have to adopt different beliefs about things that are going on in a way that doesn't sound overly anti-scientific. And of course, there's the idea that things that are anti-scientific are not really anti-scientific. They're pro a different form of science that you're just not used to, and so it really has to do with closed-mindedness about, you know, your own era's ability to compartmentalize you into a legit category of scientist. Yeah, that's it. Don't accuse people of being delusional. I highly recommend being organized when you have your beliefs, because then people are not going to be able to relate. So science is like the scientific textbooks and all the mathematical calculations. That's really helpful on a foundational level and collective level for cooperation and sharing of knowledge. But then once you limit the knowledge to solidification, like first you solidify it and then it can't be argued with, that type of thinking closes you off from bigger theories and wider thinking. There you have it. There is no such thing as delusion.